What do you mean you don't have the keys? The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass, but all Ava could feel was the chill of abandonment. That can't be right, I thought, my knuckles white as I gripped my phone. The local resident across the street was staring at me from his stoop, watching me pace back and forth in front of what used to be my home. My name is Ava Mitchell, and I had just driven 4 hours from college to Richmond for spring break, only to find my childhood apartment with a for sale sign hammered into the front lawn. The windows were bare, no curtains, no furniture visible inside. 3 black storage bins sat on the stoop like unwanted guests. When I peeked inside one, I saw my belongings, my novels, fragments of the life I'd left behind when I went to college. Your dad said you should have called first, my relative Michael said, his voice hesitant on the other end of the line. They moved last week. Didn't they tell you? No, I said, the word barely making it past the lump in my throat. They didn't tell me anything. I hung up and called my dad. Each ring felt like an eternity. Hello? His voice was flat, emotionless. Dad, the apartment is empty. There are storage bins with my stuff on the stoop. What's going on? A pause. Then we moved. You're an adult now. Deal with it. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, stunned. I called back, straight to voicemail. I tried my mom's phone, the same, my younger brother's phone. No answer. Just like that, I had been erased from their lives. No warning, no goodbye, not even the courtesy of a forwarding address. I stood there, watching the sunset cast long shadows across what used to be my front yard. The maple tree my dad and I had planted when I was 8 still stood tall, its branches reaching toward a home that no longer belonged to us. I had sent part of my scholarship money home every month. I had maintained a 3.9 GPA in pre-law while working part-time. I had been the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who never caused trouble, and this was my reward. I didn't cry. Not then. But deep down, I felt the weight of unanswered questions pressing down on my chest. What had I done to deserve this erasure? The silence was deafening, broken only by the rustle of leaves, whispering secrets I was desperate to uncover. I needed to understand my family's actions and reclaim my identity. I gathered those storage bins and tossed them into my car, my heart heavy. After checking into a motel, I spread out my salvaged belongings on the scratchy bedspread. A few textbooks, some winter belongings, and a broken picture frame capturing a moment at the beach 3 summers ago. Everyone was smiling, but the memories felt like a sharp betrayal. That night, I made a pact. If my family wanted to erase me, I'd return the favor. I'd sever all ties and create something they could never take from me. I grew up believing family was everything. My parents came here with nothing from Mexico, preaching family first like it was holy scripture. My dad worked double shifts. My mom cleaned houses. They sacrificed everything for us. Education is your ticket, Dad would say over dinner. I took that to heart while my friends partied and my peers got summer jobs. I interned at the local courthouse, studying hard. I earned my place at college on a pre-law scholarship, their hopes pinned on me. Then there's Gabriel, my younger brother, the golden child who could barely pass a class but always had their unconditional support. They defended him when he shoplifted and made excuses. He's just finding his way, they'd say. Meanwhile, I, the responsible daughter, was left in the dust. That betrayal cut deep. In my motel room, I called Professor Wilkins, my constitutional law instructor and mentor. They just left, she asked, disbelief in her voice. What do you mean? Yes, I stammered, I don't know what to do next. I can't go back to the dorms yet. My voice cracked, the rush of emotions spilling over. Listen to me, Ava. You've got to look deeper. As I listened, I felt the weight of what was happening shift. The laughter in that photo was just the beginning of my discovery. I wasn't just fighting against my family's choices, I was battling my own fears. Questions flooded my mind. What's my worth if not measured by their love? This revelation was more than painful. It was my chance to reclaim my identity. In that dim room, shadows flickered on the walls, mirroring my confusion, as rain gently tapped against the window. A cold wave of realization washed over me. I wasn't just fighting for my family's acceptance. I was fighting to redefine who I was. I took a deep breath, feeling the rain's scent fill the air around me. It was time to confront my past and step into my future. Come stay with me until the dorms reopen. We'll figure this out together. Professor Wilkins lived alone in a Victorian apartment filled with novels and 2 elderly cats. She gave me her guest room and a key. No time limit, she said. Focus on your studies. That spring break, instead of relaxing, I threw myself into research. Professor Wilkins had connected me with a summer legal internship at Riverton Law Partners, specializing in housing discrimination cases. The irony wasn't lost on me. Channel it, Professor Wilkins advised over tea one evening. The best advocacy comes from personal experience. I nodded, thinking about the family photos I'd found crumpled at the bottom of one garbage bag. My quintia, high school graduation, all the milestones my parents had celebrated only to discard the evidence like trash. That night, I blocked their numbers. All of them, my dad, mother, brother, even aunts and uncles who might enable their behavior. If anyone asked about my family, I simply said, "We're not in touch." No dramatic story, no plea for sympathy. I was rebuilding from scratch, and sentimentality had no place in the foundation. The summer internship at Riverton Law Partners changed everything. What started as basic research and coffee runs quickly evolved when my supervisor, attorney Eleanor Grayson, discovered my knack for connecting with clients. "You have something rare, Jasmine," she told me after I helped calm a young mother facing eviction. "You actually listen." I was assigned to assist with intake interviews, meeting families being pushed out of affordable housing by developers, elderly tenants facing illegal rent increases, students dealing with predatory landlords. Their stories resonated with me in ways I couldn't articulate. One evening, after a particularly grueling day interviewing 3 families from the same apartment complex who were all served simultaneous eviction notices, I stayed late organizing case notes. Eleanor found me there at 9 p.m., surrounded by papers. "Burning the midnight oil?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "These families have nowhere to go," I said, the developers offering them 2 weeks in a motel as compensation for breaking their leases early. Eleanor sighed. "Unfortunately, that's often more than the law requires." "But it's not right," I insisted. 2 weeks isn't enough time to find new housing, especially with security deposits and first month's rent. These people will end up homeless. "The system is broken," Eleanor agreed. "So, what are you going to do about it?" That question lingered with me for days. What could I, a second-year pre-law student with an internship, possibly do? The answer came unexpectedly during a mandatory college financial aid seminar. The presenter mentioned that students could apply for social innovation grants, seed money for projects addressing community needs. The application deadline was just 2 weeks away. I stayed up 3 nights straight drafting a proposal for a housing advocacy program specifically for students and low-income families. I called it Safe Space Initiative. Eleanor helped me refine the legal aspects, and Professor Wilkins reviewed the final application. While waiting to hear back about the grant, I received the first of many calls from my parents. It came 6 months after they had abandoned me, a voicemail from my dad. "Jasmine, your mother is worried about you. Call us. No apology, no explanation, just an expectation that I would respond to their summons like an obedient daughter." I didn't call back. 3 days later, another voicemail. "This silent treatment is childish, Jasmine. We're your family." I saved the message but didn't respond. The calls increased in frequency. Sometimes my dad, sometimes my mother, occasionally my brother. Their tones ranged from demanding to pleading. None acknowledged what they had done. As Ava Mitchell stood in the dimly lit office, the weight of her phone in her pocket felt heavier than ever. The glow of the screen illuminated a message from her mother. "We need to talk." Her heart raced, memories of family dinners and laughter flooding her mind, now replaced by a suffocating silence. The air was thick with tension, and the walls seemed to close in, echoing her fears of being forgotten. What could her mother possibly want after all this time? The thought sent chills down her spine, leaving Ava on the brink of a revelation that could shatter her newfound sense of belonging. When the college awarded me the Social Innovation Grant, $25,000 to launch the Safe Space Initiative, I didn't share the news with them. I was finally carving out my own path. When I was offered a paid position at Riverton to continue my work through the academic year, I celebrated with Professor Wilkins and Eleanor instead. My new family was forming around me, people who supported me not out of obligation but out of genuine respect and care. By January, the Safe Space Initiative had assisted 23 students fighting wrongful evictions. We operated out of a converted storage room at Riverton Law Partners, with 2 volunteer paralegals and a rotating schedule of law students earning clinical hours. Most days I rushed from classes to the office, spending evenings reviewing cases and refining our approach. The work was exhausting, but fulfilling. Each family that maintained housing, each student who avoided homelessness, felt like a personal victory. I was building something meaningful from the wreckage of my own displacement. Meanwhile, my parents had ramped up their campaign to reconnect. The calls came with alarming frequency, sometimes multiple times a day. When I continued ignoring them, they enlisted relatives. "Your mother cries every night," my Aunt Lucia texted. "Whatever they did, can't you forgive them?" I didn't respond to these messages either. Forgiveness required acknowledgement, and they had yet to admit any wrongdoing. One Tuesday afternoon in February, I was counseling a sophomore named Devin, who had returned from winter break to find his landlord had rented his room to someone else despite his paid-up lease. As we discussed his options, the office phone rang. "Safe Space Initiative, this is Ava," I answered, gesturing apologetically to Devin. "Ava, is that you?" It was my mother's voice. My stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "It's on your website," she said. "Why haven't you returned our calls? We've been worried sick." Devin shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the tension palpable. What would I say? Would I finally confront the ghosts of my past? Or would I let the silence linger, like the scent of rain on pavement, heavy and unresolved? The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, casting a strange glow as I listened to my mom's voice, thick with emotions. "Ava, we're your parents," she insisted, her tone breaking. "We have the right." The weight of her words hung in the air. I could feel the walls closing in, suffocating me. "You lost that right," I shot back, my voice steady yet trembling with anger. "When you tossed my stuff in storage bins and sold our apartment without telling me, I'm not having this conversation now." "Ava, your dad made a mistake," she pleaded, desperation lacing her voice. "We had financial troubles. The apartment was being foreclosed on. We were embarrassed." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I never knew. But what about my pain? "If you were in trouble, you could have told me," I said, my voice softening. "I was already sending money home." "Your dad wouldn't allow it," she replied, the blame shifting like the rustling leaves outside. His pride. His pride. It had dictated our family's life, but it didn't justify their actions. "I need to get back to work," I said firmly, holding my ground. "Please respect my boundaries." I hung up, feeling both relieved and shaken. That brief conversation unearthed buried emotions. Anger, yes, but also a twisted sense of loyalty. As I stared at the Safe Space Initiative call log, I felt Eleanor's presence behind me. "Everything okay? You seem distracted," she asked, worry etched in her features. "Part of me wants to believe they had a good reason," I confessed, the tension twisting in my gut. "People rarely act out of pure cruelty," Eleanor replied, her eyes serious. "But reasons and excuses? Totally different. They chose to abandon you, without warning. She was right, and yet my mother's words whispered a troubling possibility. What if there was more to their story than I'd ever known? Breathing in deeply, I felt the scent of impending rain outside, heavy with secrets. The shadows around me shifted, reflecting my inner chaos. Was it time to dive deeper into this tangled web, or keep running from the truth? Tap, tap. Rain drums the Richmond window like impatient knocks. I stare at the unheard voicemail playing on speaker. Mrs. Hernandez, ancient laugh lines gone thin over the phone, says, "They left an envelope, Ava." Flash of 7 years ago. Empty apartment, dust hanging like fog after fireworks. My name, in faded Sharpie, on a storage bin my family wheeled away. Now my name again, on creamy vellum. She rips it open. Paper rasp. My pulse mirrors the rain. "Listen," she whispers. "Mitchell Estate, Mexico. You've inherited land, in a place called Waka." Waka? Sounds like a heartbeat echoing down a hallway. I picture the dusty apartment toys replaced by palm trees. Mom's untouched teacup traded for sea salt wind. No forwarding address on the letter. How did they find me? I swallow. Read the rest. She does, line by halting line. Property includes cenote access. Deed transferred upon your 21st birthday. Yesterday. Silence swells louder than thunder. Mrs. Hernandez fills it. "They've been trying to reach you for months. Law firm said your parents refused delivery." Refused. The word slams me back to the day the sold sign snapped up. Mom's silence. Dad's turned back. Gabriel waving from the car like I was TV static. Now, inherit Earth, but not the living room where we once braided cornhusk dolls. The dangling truth. Why hide this? I press end, hand shaking harder than the incoming storm. My cursor blinks beside the Watkins grant verdict. Pending. Below, an email subject line glows. Urgent. Waka deeds require immediate signature. I whisper to the rain. Were they protecting me, or erasing her? Scent of soaked pavement. Taste of salt, not from tears, from possibility. Next breath, I'm booking a flight. Carry on. A flash drive crammed with trauma, hope, and the grant I can't yet win. As wheels lift off Virginia cloud cover, I remember her. The grandmother who mailed tamales and folklore scribbles. Her handwriting curls in my head. One day, mi niña, the earth will speak your true name. Now it does, vibrating through thin air. Ava Mitchell, heir of Waka. The moment hit me like a freight train. Ava Mitchell sat in a law office, heart racing, breath suspended in bitter disbelief. "Over 400 grand, she mouthed, voice barely a whisper. The sterile scent of ancient paperwork mixed with the faint aroma of coffee, yet all she tasted was the sharp tang of betrayal. How could her grandmother, who lived so simply, have left such an inheritance? The letter explained everything. Resort condominiums built after her passing, and she was set to inherit the proceeds from 2 units. But that wasn't the worst of it. With each line Mrs. Hernandez dictated, Ava felt a deeper wound open. Finalized last March, the words echoed in her mind. Just 1 month before her family turned their backs on her. The timing gnawed at her. They knew. They chose money over connection, privilege over blood. "Wait," she said, pulse quickening. "Did my parents know?" Soon enough, clarity hit harder than a storm. Yes, they'd been informed, and they decided to erase her from their lives anyway. Had her family really traded love for dollars? For a brief moment, the world outside the window blurred. Rain drizzled against glass, a soothing yet haunting rhythm. "How could they?" she uttered, voice cracking under the weight of realization. She was left abandoned and trapped inside a life-sized puzzle with no pieces fitting together. And in the midst of this chaos, the Watkins Foundation reached out, a glimmer of hope amidst a descending storm. They wanted her to present. Her chance to transform Safe Space into something monumental faded into the background noise. "Why?" she asked Professor Wilkins during dinner that night. "Why would they hide this from me?" The professor paused, fork hovering midair, deep in thought. Maybe they wanted control, a safety net, to keep you dependent on them. Ava felt the weight of those words settle heavily. Dependent? But she refused to be defined by their choices. Her family's abandonment didn't erase her identity. In fact, it ignited a fire within her. As she looked out at the rain-soaked streets, the scent of possibility lingered in the air like the scent of fresh earth after rain. It was time to take control. Time to understand her family's actions and reclaim the narrative of her life. Who would she be now? She had to find out. Destiny called her, and she was listening closely. Ava Mitchell, heir of Waka. Their twisted choices became her rallying cry. The world was waiting. She was ready to rise. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. Or maybe they never planned to tell me at all. The inheritance funds were transferred to my account 3 days before the Watkins Foundation presentation. I hadn't decided what to do with the money, but its presence offered a strange security. For the first time since finding my childhood home empty, I felt financially untethered from my past. The Watkins presentation was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in May. I arrived at the Foundation's downtown offices an hour early, reviewing my notes in the sleek waiting area. Our proposal requested $300,000 over 3 years to expand Safe Space's services beyond the college to the broader community. Eleanor arrived 20 minutes before the scheduled time, impeccable in a charcoal suit. "Ready?" she asked, sitting beside me. "As I'll ever be," I replied, straightening my own carefully selected blazer. Navy blue, professional, but not intimidating. The board can seem formal, she warned, but they care about impact. Focus on the human stories, how Safe Space changes lives. We were escorted into a boardroom where 8 people sat around a polished table. I recognized several from my research. Local business leaders, philanthropists, a former judge. The Foundation's director, William Watkins himself, rose to greet us. "Ms. Rose, Ms. Grayson, welcome," he said, gesturing toward the presentation area. "We've been impressed by your written proposal. Show us why SafePace deserves our support." I connected my laptop to their projector and began. The presentation outlined Safe Space's journey from student project to community resource, highlighting key cases and systemic impacts. Eleanor chimed in with legal context, explaining how our model filled gaps in existing services. 20 minutes in, as I was describing our vision for expansion, the boardroom door opened. A Foundation assistant whispered something to Mr. Watkins, who nodded. "I apologize for the interruption," Mr. Watkins said. The room hummed with anticipation, fluorescent lights buzzing above as Ava Mitchell stood at the forefront of her career. Yet, the moment the boardroom fell silent, her heart raced. Everyone leaned in, but one pair of eyes cut through the noise like a knife. The crisp scent of copier toner filled her lungs as whispers from the back sent chills down her spine. Were those really her parents' names she heard? Confusion and fear gripped her, flipping her world upside down in an instant. She was no longer just a driven professional. She was a daughter on the brink of crisis. Ms. Rojas, the Foundation's director, William Watkins, interrupted her thoughts. "There are people here claiming to be your family. They're quite insistent on speaking with you." Her heart dropped. Family? Wasn't that a myth she had buried under layers of independence? "It's urgent," he added, shifting uncomfortably. "We can ask them to wait." Jasmine felt Eleanor's reassuring grip on her arm, grounding her. "Your call," she murmured softly. Taking a deep breath, she faced the tempest within. What could possibly be so urgent after nearly a year of silence? "Please tell them I'll speak with them after the presentation," she replied, her voice steady despite her racing mind. Finally, she finished her pitch, navigating the questions from the board like a ship through turbulent waters. Yet, as they thanked her and promised to decide in 2 weeks, a hollow ache replaced any lingering hope. Outside, her parents awaited her, a tableau of complicated emotions. Her mother's face bore the marks of desperation and hope, while her dad sat with a guarded expression, like a wall ready to keep her out. "Jasmine," her mother began, stepping forward, "we need to talk." Eleanor squeezed her shoulder. "I'll give you privacy. Call me later." "Why are you here?" Jasmine shot back, words sharp yet trembling. "How did you even find me?" "We saw the newspaper article about your housing program," her mother said. There was a flicker of vulnerability as she continued. "It mentioned the Watkins presentation today. We've been trying to reach you for months." "I'm aware," Jasmine shot back coolly. The silence that followed felt heavy. It was a battlefield of emotions. Confusion, anger, and a longing she thought long buried. What was really at stake here? Would this conversation alter the very identity she'd fought to reclaim? 247 calls is hard to miss. My dad finally stood. "This has gone on long enough, Jasmine. You're being childish?" A bitter laugh escaped me. "Childish? I came home to find my belongings in storage bins. You sold our apartment without telling me. You abandoned me. And I'm the childish one? We made a mistake," my mother said, her voice trembling. "We want to make it right." "Now you want to make it right?" I asked. "After a year, after I've rebuilt my entire life without you, why now?" Gabriel shifted uncomfortably. "Just hear them out, Jazz." "I know about the inheritance," I said flatly. "Is that why you're suddenly interested in reconciliation, because the money came through?" My dad's face darkened. "You've always been so quick to judge, and you've always been so quick to discard," I countered. "You knew about my grandmother's estate last March. You kept it from me, then threw me away." My mother's eyes widened. I know everything," I confirmed. "The question is, what do you want now?" The foundation's reception area wasn't the place for a family reckoning, so we relocated to a nearby coffee shop. I sat across from them, maintaining physical and emotional distance as they attempted to explain the inexplicable. "We were ashamed," my mother admitted, cradling her untouched coffee. "The foreclosure. Your dad lost his job and I couldn't make enough cleaning houses. We couldn't tell you. So instead of asking for help, you abandoned me." I kept my voice low, controlled. "We found out about your grandmother's money right after you left for spring semester," my dad explained. "The lawyers said you'd inherit when you turned 21. We thought if we moved, started over somewhere new, we could fix our finances before you found out, by selling the apartment and leaving me with nothing." We panicked. My mother said. They exchanged nervous glances, the tension almost tangible. Gabriel broke the silence. "They made a terrible mistake, Jazz. They realize that now." "The safe space thing," my dad added, his rough voice slipping into vulnerability. "We saw what you've accomplished in the newspaper, and understood we'd lost something precious." "Your successful daughter," I translated bitterly, my words dripping with resentment. "No," my mom insisted. "It's about our family, our connection." I studied their faces. These were the people who had shaped my early life, only to shatter it. Mom looked older, gray strands in her dark hair betraying her struggle. My dad's shoulders sagged under the weight of what his choices had cost us. Gabriel had grown, his boyish features now marked by a hint of maturity. "I've built a new life," I said, the words steady in my throat. "New connections, people who value me regardless of my accomplishments." "We're still your family," my dad pleaded, desperation in his gaze. I held his eyes, unwavering. "Family doesn't put your belongings in storage bins." Rising from the table, I placed enough cash to cover our drinks and prepared to leave. "I don't need closure. I've moved forward. But if you truly want to make amends, start by respecting my boundaries." As I walked away, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction or anger, but a quiet strength. I had faced my abandoners on my own terms. I was whole. The next morning, my phone buzzed. The Watkins Foundation called. Your Safe Space initiative has been awarded the full grant amount, plus an extra $50,000 for operational expenses. That afternoon, a national news outlet reached out to feature the initiative in a segment about innovative approaches to housing justice. When the story aired 2 weeks later, it reached millions of viewers, including, I later learned, my parents. They never called again. Sometimes the family you build becomes stronger than the one you were born into. As I gazed toward my future, a newfound certainty filled me. I would never measure my worth through someone else's eyes again.